Trent Shelton is a former NFL wide receiver and the #1 performance and purpose coach in the world. Trent is one of the most impactful speakers of his generation, and he wrote a book called Protecting Your Peace. And that's what a lot of what we talk about today. We get into what protecting your peace looks like, and we dive into carrying on after you lose, whether that be a loved one or in sport or business or life in general. And Trent gives you his top 3 actionable things to help you find the strength and purpose that you were built for. And thanks for listening. Trent, I think we first connected on Instagram. You reached out to me to do an Instagram Live, which was so fun. And I will never forget that in that conversation, you had such a great ability to deliver the truth in a positive way. And I think that God really gave you a special gift. So it is really my honor to welcome you to the Built for Growth show today. I'm so excited to dive into the conversation with you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you. It's an honor to be here. And I can't wait to impact some lives with you.
Yeah, let's go. All right. So, we're in the midst of the holidays, and I look at this time as a very joyous time for a lot of people, but I also look at this time as a very difficult time for a lot of us who have lost people who we miss during these times. And part of the reason why I started this podcast, a big part of the reason, was my coach, Robert Follis, who was a mentor to me. He was a brother to me. He was somebody that I knew that I could turn to in my darkest moments, and he would be there. He, sacrificed so much, not just for me, but for all of his athletes. And we lost him December 15th, a few years ago now. Gosh, it's probably 6 years ago. And I lost him to suicide, and it was such a shocking moment for me to realize that somebody who I looked at as such a strong person would be struggling in the ways that I think he kept from a lot of people. And I know that you have a similar story with a friend of yours. Anthony was his name, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I took that, I guess where I was going to go with this, I took Robert's memory and the things that he taught me. And one of his infamous, we call them Follisisms, his name was Robert Follis, and he had many great quotes. And he would have been a great motivational speaker himself. But he said to me that change is inevitable, but growth is not. And that inspired the name of this podcast, because I think that so many people go through life and we just let life passively change us. And we don't always choose growth. But with that being said, and Robert, how he inspired me in so many ways, he was there, led me to my world championship when I beat Holly Holm. He was in my corner. He was just that #1 person in my life. And it's hard to lose somebody, but I think that we can take that and we can gain some strength from it. So if you would please share your story with your friend Anthony, and maybe how that loss has impacted you in a way where you feel like maybe you can make change in other people's lives inspired by that loss.
Absolutely. And I know how hard that is, when you lose somebody. So I want to say, I'm praying for you, because people don't realize, once that person is gone, it's a forever void in your soul and your heart. And you have your days where you're good. You have your days where you're not so good. But you hit the nail on the head by saying being intentional. And I think intentionality is the key to life. And you got to ask yourself, how are you going to use this situation? I'm a big believer in perspective. I believe your perspective can be your power, your prison. And one of the ways that I live in my power perspective is I ask myself the questions. It's easy in easy times, but in hard times, okay, how is this going to help me grow? What can I learn from this situation? And as far as with Anthony, I think a lot of people deal with this with grief. And when you lose somebody close to you, you move to regret. You start to think about, man, I wish I would have been there. I wish I would have checked up more. Maybe I could have did something. It's a natural human, emotion to go through and deal with. But I realize it doesn't do anything for your soul. It doesn't do anything moving forward. It doesn't do anything to help the legacy of that person. And so I like to live in appreciation. And I like to say, at least I got, 20 something years with Anthony. My mother passed. At least I got 36 years with my mother. And the next question I asked myself is, how am I going to use this? How can I use this to keep him alive? And what I did was what I do now. I wasn't trying to be a motivational speaker. I wasn't trying to be this personality online. Literally, I wanted to play football. But when I lost him, it was my promise to him to say, you know what? There's people out in the world just like him that were dealing with self-worth. Maybe they lost a relationship or lost a job or lost something. They feel like their life is over. And so I want to be vulnerable and talk about my struggles, because when I lost football, I felt my life was over. And I just went on that journey. And to look back now, it's crazy because he's more alive. Of course, I would do anything to have his physical presence here, but he's more alive in my life than he's ever been. And, we've reached millions of people across the world, and I can literally contribute that to my best friend, taking his life. And I hate to contribute to that, but I said, how can I use this? And I used it for greater. Now, people across the world are now getting help when they're going through those moments. So you always have a choice in those moments. You can allow them to die when they die, or you can allow their death to create legacy and keep them more alive. And I chose to keep my friend more alive.
It's beautiful. Same here. What do people who are still here, mourning the loss of somebody, missing that person, but they're still here, what do they need to know about the value of their life and their self-worth moving forward?
Yeah, your life matters. No matter what you're going through, no matter, what you're dealing with, you still have purpose. You still have meaning. And I know it's hard to believe that when you're going through hard times, but if you look back on your life, your biggest growth moments came from your biggest pain moments. It didn't come from the perfect moments. It didn't come from everything going right. Everybody's story, when they tell their story, it's about something they overcame. And so when you're in that season of trouble, when you're in that season of what I call troubled water, you have to allow that time to teach you how to swim. You have to tell yourself that this is not just for me, it's bigger than me. So even in my life, you look at me and people say, oh, Trent, you're so inspirational and motivational. And what people don't know is that that came from me going through so much in my life, going through so many things I didn't want to deal with and go through. But I say, you know what? I'm going to use this for greater. I'm going to use this to help somebody else. So when we talk about purpose, Misha, a lot of people think that purpose is just for you. But purpose is not just for you. It's about affecting other people through the things that you went through. So I would just tell that person, how is this going to add to your best life? How is this going to create a better future for you? And if you can't even fathom that because you're such in a dark moment, just decide to say, you know what? I'm going to give tomorrow another chance. And that's what I did, Misha. Like, I didn't know what tomorrow hold. I didn't have some plan to be like, oh, I'm going to be here in 5 years. I just decided to not give up on tomorrow until my tomorrows actually turned into something that I became proud of.
We were talking about this a little bit when we had a call before the show about focusing on the things that you can control. And it sounds like, to me, that's what you did in that moment when it felt like the world was spinning out from underneath your feet and you didn't know where you'd be a year from now, much less sometimes even hard to get to tomorrow. But tomorrow is what you can hold on to. That's what you can control, that decision you make in that moment. The one decision at a time. Is that something that you felt like you implemented, focusing on what you can control and sort of eliminating a lot of the thought about the things that you can't control?
1,000%. I feel like that is the recipe to life. When I talk to people, and I have, whether I'm coaching or mentoring, everybody's problems are usually tied to things they can't control. And everybody's problems are these external things, how somebody feels about me or this happened. And it's life, right? But I always say, look, peace is something you will never experience if you keep allowing the things you can't control to control you. So when I'm in my moments of chaos and my moments of where I want to panic, I just relax and say, Trent, what can you control in this moment? There's a million things that you can be worried about, but half of our worries, I would say 99.9% of our worries and fears are things that will never happen or things that we can't even have any control over. And so I'm like, okay, how can I take ownership right now and focus on what I can do. And I think when you realize the power in that, it can change your freaking life. Because again, and I've been this person too, where it's like, I'm worried about this and I'm worried about the internet and I'm worried about this person, I'm worried about that. I'm like, you can't control that. And I personally believe, I teach on this, that there's two things you're in control of. What you accept, right? Nobody can make you accept something that you don't want to accept. And then for this sake of conversation, what you give, right? Nobody can stop you from giving anything. Nobody can stop you from showing up. Nobody can stop you from speaking life into your life. Nobody can stop you from working on your best self. Now, people can try, but you're in control of what you give. And so every day I ask myself, what do you want to give to today? And sometimes I honor that. Most times I do. Sometimes I have my days where, I fall short, but I always start my day by being intentional, by saying, what do you want to give to today, and focus on that.
I start my day with the same thing. The first 5 minutes before I lift my head up off the pillow, I think about, what do I want out of today?
There you go.
What do I want? And I try to set some intention so that I can start my day with intention. And then I go outside and I connect with nature, which I know is something that you are big on. I mean, that is for me a non-negotiable. I wake up after I've set my intentions and I go outside and I get morning light in my eyes and I put my bare feet on the ground. Do you have any kind of ritual yourself like that where you connect with nature?
Oh yeah. I'm a I'm a spokesperson for nature, man. I believe nature heals. I believe nature, as I would say, is God's natural medicine for the soul. I believe nature is just a healing environment. Nature is a place for me to cry, a place for me to, bring my problems to, a place for me to disconnect. I talk about in Protect Your Peace, my book, the second principle is disconnect often. And a lot of us, we're so connected to stress. We're so connected to all these things that sometimes we got to be connected to, whether it's our job or our family, whatever it may be, our responsibilities. But what I see with most people is that they don't give themselves time to disconnect, where it's just them time. And so that's a big part of the prescription for my peace, is being out in nature, especially trail runs, especially just sitting out there. I mean, half of it's so crazy because even during COVID, it started to be a thing for me where nature became my office, because I do believe environments hold energy. And my office was a stressful environment during that time. And so I literally would go out in nature, do my podcast. I would go out in nature, bring my team out there sometimes. And even to this day, we find our best connection out there in nature. So nature, man, I'm a nature lover. I don't always love the things in nature, but I always tell people I love nature. It changed my life.
Well, if you ever come to Vegas, I'd love to take you hiking out in the Red Rocks, because I'm all about it too, And you say disconnect, and although I believe that, because we are disconnecting from the noise and the chaos and everything that society and the demands of life for us to be functional and providers in this world, we do have to meet a certain amount of that chaos, and we have to be ready for that. But
Yeah.
I also look at nature as the true reconnection. So we are disconnecting from the noise because that's what we're plugged into a lot. But just like a phone that overheats and shuts off, eventually we're going to get to that point. If you never turn your phone off, it's going to get to the point where it's running slow, it's bogging down, the battery's dying faster, and it shuts off eventually because it's just tired. You never turn it off. But I feel like when I get out into nature, that is actually the moment that I really reconnect with purpose. I really reconnect with everything that the world actually has to offer. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. One of my favorite sayings is, disconnect from the world so you can reconnect to your soul. And that's exactly what it is for me. It's a literally an energy charger. And I have this thing I teach called energy multiplication. And it's a method that I tell people, and everybody has their different perspectives, but a lot of people say eat the frog first thing in the morning. For me, I used to do that, but for my energy, it just didn't work well, because I would do the hardest tasks, but it wasn't the best for my energy, and then the rest of the day I would be burnt out. And so what I've learned how to do, I even did it today, where there's certain things that I do that might not be the hardest tasks, but it literally multiplies my energy. So when I get to the hardest task, whatever that task is for the day, I show up with the right energy. And nature is that for me. Like, that's a non-negotiable. And the crazy thing that you talked about, cell phones, like, people will protect their cell phone battery more than they will protect their soul battery, right? When their soul starts to get depleted, they ignore it, instead of disconnecting and say, oh man, I need to, reconnect to, maybe it's friends. I need to reconnect. Maybe it's nature. I need to reconnect to the things that are going to really fill me up. We ignore it. And a lot of people are walking around burnt out, and stressed out. And so I love to say, protect your soul just like you protect your cell phone battery. You got to make sure you recharge it and listen to your soul.
Absolutely. Did you say eat the frog first thing in the morning? Did I hear that right? What is that? What does
Yeah,
that mean?
like there's a saying, right? And like, I don't know if it's business, but like they say eat the frog. And what it means is like you do the hardest thing, the hardest task first. And I get that. Like, cause some days I do that, but I've realized, like, say my hardest task is, I don't know, maybe it's writing a book. And when I'm through writing a book, I'm gonna be burnt out. You know what I mean? And if I have a lot of things to do that day, or even with my family, like I'm not gonna have energy to be present with my family. And so I'm always doing things that add my energy to where I get to the point where I got to get to that big task. My energy's high. So like today, right now, this is a big task for me, and specifically I do my interviews around this time. So I'll make sure that all the things before this are multiplying my energy, put me in the right headspace. When I get here, I can show up the best version of myself. And so that's just a method I use that's really helped my life be more productive.
What did you do before you came here?
I was in nature, and then I did hot yoga, I ran, and this morning I did a cold plunge. And so
Oh,
that's it.
let's go. You can't have a bad day when you do a cold plunge. I'm just saying.
You can't.
When you start your day with that kind of intention, man, that's a mindset shift, to be able to get in that cold water. And then there's something, I mean, my mood elevation after I get in cold water, it's next level.
Absolutely. I call it the fountain of youth for sure.
Yeah, it is. But it's also one of the hardest things to do. I don't know if it is for you. I feel like you big muscly guys, you pop in that ice water like it's nothing. I'm over here just
Nope.
like, I'm dying, man.
I ask myself every single time, like, why am I doing this? Every time. I never get used to it.
Yeah, I ask myself that too sometimes before fights, like why? And it's like, because I love it and I love myself.
There you go.
And that's it. And I'm worth that. I'm worth finding something that I love and that I am passionate about and that I feel like, sets my soul on fire, and it puts me in a free space.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I love the body benefits, but like you said, the mental benefits that it brings. Because I've been doing cold plunges since pee wee football, well, not pee wee football, but like middle school football. So it's a football thing. Go jump in the tub. And what I've learned now is just more from the mental side. And I always just use it, man. If I can sit in a 40-degree water, for 5 minutes, whatever it may be, then if I say I want to do these incredibly hard tasks, but I can't sit in 40-degree water, then it's like, man, your mindset isn't right. So mentally, it really makes me strong to be able to attack things in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the ice bath is certainly, taxing on the mental side, but once you get over that, the body can really do anything.
Yeah.
How important do you think surrendering to the process is? We're talking about the ice bath. That is a surrender, in my opinion. And there's so many times in my life when I thought that, being in control and trying to make it happen was less powerful than surrendering to the process and realizing what is meant to be will be. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
I'm not proactive in going after what I want, but I'm quicker now to accept things when they don't go my way and just say, surrender, it's all right. Like, whatever that door closed, you thought you were going to run through it and it's closed now. So what else is available to me? I'm not going to waste time trying to yank that door open and resist it with all my might. I'm actually going to run through the other doors that are wide open for me. You know what I mean?
1,000%. I think that's the key to life. I think you gave people the recipe because, a lot of times we want the process to look how we want it to look. People always ask, what do you see yourself in 10 years? And I have a joke and I just say alive, because of course I have a plan. Of course, I have a roadmap, but at the end of the day, I'm open enough to know that my plan probably won't go the way that I planned. And I've come to a point in my life where I live with no ceilings. I think so many times, and I say this in personal development, and I always get a sideways look because I'm not saying don't set goals. I do want to say this, but I do believe most people's goals limit them. They set goals based upon their past experiences. And I just had a conversation with my nephew about this. I was like, yeah, he's a 4 or 5 star recruit in football. And I said, that's a great like goal, but at the end of the day, don't let the goal get you full off success, because now that becomes your ceiling. I seen a lot of people who were great and they reached, even me. NFL was my goal. Once I got there, I stopped working hard. And so I've learned to live by standards. I learned to live a lifestyle. I don't even live by finish lines no more. I don't live by destinations. I don't say, okay, I want to be at this destination. I say, no, this is the direction I want to go. And you know what? I'm going to trust that if I do the right things and I keep showing up, it, we might have detours. We might get lost a bit, but even in getting lost, I got to trust that me getting lost still has purpose to bring something to my life. Maybe it's some information, maybe it's some wisdom, maybe the detour actually brings me closer, brings me a relationship that I wouldn't have gotten if I would have stayed on the path. And so I'm literally that trustworthy in my life with the unknown. I have peace even when things are going like chaos, because I know that everything is going to work out. And so a big part of having peace is letting go of control. And it's crazy to say that, because most people are like, no, I have to be in control. I have to be in control. And the truth is, Misha, like, we're not in control anyway. Like, you could plan everything out. You can have everything go right and it will still go wrong. I mean, you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know what the future brings. It's not an excuse to be lazy. It's not an excuse not to be intentional. But you got to know that things are working out for your best, even when it seems like it's not. And that has brought more peace, and actually it's brought more productivity to my life by just saying, this is the lifestyle, this is the standards, this is how we're going to show up. We're not going to let anything dictate how we move or slow us down. We're going to have ups, we're going to have downs. That's a part of the journey. But let's keep on going until we reach our finish line, whenever that is. And so that's definitely helped me be more productive in my life, for sure.
This brings me to share with you that there is these certain exercises that I do, especially when I'm in preparation for a fight. But I will tell you what it taught me mentally, I carry with me every single day. So obviously people know when we're fighting, you know, we train, we lift weights, we wrestle, we spar, we do all these very active things. But I'll tell you, some of the most impactful training that I have done is actually breath holds underwater. So we'll actually let out about 90% of our oxygen till we sink down to the bottom of the pool, which isn't very deep. You know, we're talking 3 feet or so, but 3-4 feet. You sit there and you're holding your breath, and there comes a moment, no matter how good you are at holding your breath, where you want to breathe. You want to come up for air, and you want it real bad, like your life depends on it, real bad. And in that moment, what I have to do with myself is find my calm and find my peace and surrender further to the process. Find a way to relax more. Find a way to lean into the fact that I'm okay. I might want to breathe right now, but I actually have a lot more to give before I need to breathe. And I sit under that water and I focus on relaxing my fingertips, my shoulders, my cheeks, my face muscles. Everything about me needs to surrender to the peace and tranquility and be as relaxed as I possibly can be. And then I will actually find the moment where I truly need to breathe. But it doesn't come, it feels like it comes a lot sooner. And the more that I try to control it, the more that I tense up or I panic or I try to override, I will need to breathe sooner in that moment than if I can lean into the surrendering and realize, like, I had another 20, 30 seconds, another minute before I actually needed what my body and my brain automatically went into telling me. You need this. No, I'm okay right now. I can surrender to this process. And, you know, I learn a lot about my mentality in those moments.
Yeah, that's powerful. It reminds me of something like, and I don't know if you call it this, but I call it just chaos training. You know, I did it a lot as an athlete. I do it with my son all the time, and I always make the training more chaotic than the actual, you know, whether it's the game or like you said in the pool where you want to fight, you know what I mean? You have to learn how to find peace, and that's life. You know, one of the things about protecting your peace, when I talk about this, people think that it means that everything is just sunshine and rainbows. No, Peace is saying that I acknowledge that there's chaos around me, but the chaos around me is not going to kill the calm inside me. And doing those exercises that you're talking about is really helping you in the real world. I mean, definitely in fighting, I'm sure, to be able to stay at a place of peace, even when everything around you is trying to disrupt your peace or take your peace. And I think those are the most powerful people in the world that stay neutral no matter what's going on. I mean, even as a fighter, like I'm sure you get kicked in the, I was talking about this. I don't know how y'all handle getting kicked in the shin. I probably would like freak out. But in those moments of all those things happening, you're still able to stay neutral and stay focused. And I think that's life, because life is going to promise you chaotic moments. The unexpected is going to happen, whether it's losing a coach or a friend or a mother, or financially something happens. It's how can I not panic and press panic mode? How can I still press peace mode when I want to come up for air? And so I think that's great, man. I'm gonna have to apply that to my practices for sure.
Definitely. It's really, really powerful. And I think about the grasp that I have on my peace now that I didn't have so long ago. I think, when somebody's angry in traffic, or, people say rude things online or whatever, it's like, you know what? I am so powerful now because you cannot steal my peace. There is literally nothing that anybody could say to me that would steal my peace, because they're not worth it. If somebody's trying to steal my peace, if they're trying to disrupt my peace, I don't have time for that. I have such a strong grip on who I am and the peace that I have worked so hard for through those struggles, through the strife, through the turbulations, that you can't steal it from me now. Nobody can steal it. It's buried. It's inside me. It's mine. I own it.
Yeah, your peace is priceless. And that's the thing I tell people all the time. There's a great quote. I think it's by, maybe it's Socrates. It's by somebody, one of the great philosophers, but it's he who angers you controls you. Maybe it's Confucius. He who angers you controls you. And it's true. I was just talking to a kid the other day. He was like, man, I have power, nobody can. And he reacts, right? When something doesn't go right, or somebody says, oh, you're sorry. He reacts and wants to fight. And I said, that person has power over you. He's like, no, he doesn't. I said, yes, he does. Literally, you got kicked out the game because you reacted. You're about to fight a kid outside of school because you reacted. These people are controlling you. And I think one of the most powerful things that you can do is what you just said, is like, you're not worth my peace. This situation isn't worth the response. Yeah, the person driving down the street that cussed you out, maybe because you cut them off on accident. I'm not going to allow you to control my mood and control how I feel. And to me, in a positive way, those are the most dangerous human beings, where there's nothing you can do or say that's going to control them emotionally. And when you get to that emotional health, as I call it, emotional state, where nothing outside of you has the power to control you, then it's game over, because now you're moving with a different type of focus that most people don't have.
Yeah, that's so powerful, Trent. I wanted to ask you about losing your dream. I know that you said NFL, that was what you wanted to do, and then it didn't work out in the way I'm sure that you had envisioned it, and the way that you thought it was going to. So I guess my question for you would be, how did you get through a moment like that where you thought you had it and then it was gone?
Yeah. Oh man, it was a hard time getting through it. It took me a few years because, and as you know, it's all I ever knew. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday. They asked the whole table, like, what was your first job? And they asked me, I was like, football. It's like, you never worked. I was like, literally, like, that was of course I might have cut grass here and there, but that was the only thing I ever knew my whole entire life. I literally gave my whole life to that game. And once it was gone, it was like, what do I do now? And I remember specifically, like in 2010, being in my room at my parents' house. And I asked myself this question, like, is this it? Like, is this the pinnacle of my life? Have I experienced the greatest I'm ever going to experience? And it was a whisper in my soul that said, nah, it's just beginning. And it was so hard to believe that, Misha, because I looked out and I didn't see any physical evidence. Like, okay, I hear you, soul, talking to me, but when I'm looking at all this, my circumstances, it's like, nah. When I'm looking at just even my circle, it's like, nah. But I had to believe, despite the actual physical evidence, and what I call it is soul evidence. I had to believe the soul evidence that there was something bigger towards my life. And what I did was, which we talked about earlier, I said words that it's rehab time. And people now know rehab time is being my organization. But at that time, rehab time meant literally, as an athlete, you get hurt, you go to rehab, and you put, you rehab sucks, but if you do it right, sometimes you come back, most times you come back better when you take care of that injury properly. And I say, you know what? In life, I need to rehab my mind, body, and soul. So I just focused on going to the gym. I focused on reading books. I focused on all the things that I wasn't even doing at that time. My relationship with God. And over the course of the maybe a few years, everything changed for me. My perspective changed, my mind renewed. It was like I saw things differently, even when nothing really changed, right? I was able to see things that were working for me, even in the same circumstances. And I think that's very powerful. Like, one of my prayers every day is renew my mind, because I don't believe oftentimes your circumstances change, right? A lot of us, we're looking for physical evidence in our circumstances changing. Like, oh, okay, well, my life is changing now because my circumstances change, or I got my blessing, or I got, my video went viral on YouTube, or whatever it may be. And that's not the case. When you start change, you're probably going to meet resistance right after you start that change and make that choice. But you have to be able to know, man, I'm renewing my mind, so now I see things differently. And that's what I held on to. And I picked up my cell phone and I just started making videos and documenting my journey of what I was actually dealing with. And here we are 15 years later, now impacting the world.
What would you say your advice would be to somebody who is struggling with their self-worth?
I would ask the person this question. If you're struggling with self-worth, number one, what is your worth connected to? And I really want you to think about that, because I know this is true, because I've dealt with thousands of people. It's always the same answer. Your worth is connected to something outside of you. Maybe it's followers on social media. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's financial status. And as a human being, it's natural to tie our worth to those things. But when you sit there and think about it, you are allowing something outside of you to control your worth. And now if it's a relationship and the relationship doesn't go right, oh, now I feel worthless. Or if it's the job, I get fired, now I feel worthless. And so I would tell you that you have to tie your worth to something more permanent. Mine is my faith, whatever you believe in, but you got to have something that's permanent that says, this is who I am regardless. Regardless if this changes or not, this is who I am. Regardless if, I go from, pinnacle peak of success back down to the bottom, this is who I am. Right? Despite how people see me and view me, this is who I am. And that's very, very important, because your worth is tied to two things. It's tied to the acceptance of self. A lot of people haven't accepted their self. They're usually tying their self-worth to their past, right? I always say, like, we wear these glasses and we see the world through our past. When you try to tell somebody to change, they never see what you're trying to show them, because they have these past lenses on. All they can see is their mistakes. All they can see is the things that they've been through, their circumstances, maybe how they were raised. You have to take off those glasses and you have to start to accepting yourself to say, listen, this is what I've been through. Yes, I made mistakes. Just because I made some mistakes doesn't mean my future can't be great. I'm a choice away from a new beginning, right? I'm a choice away from turning the page and create a new chapter. And so that's one part. And the second part is, the confidence of self. And confidence is a lot of things that we talked about, right? Focus on what you can control, honoring the promise and commitments that you're making to yourself, proving to yourself, and you said this earlier, Misha, that you're worth it. So when I work out, it's no longer about like, oh, I want to just look good or I want to be fast. I do these things to show myself I'm worth my health, right? When I start a big project, it's no longer about like, oh, I want to just inspire the world. Yeah, that's cool. But I'm showing myself that I'm worth this creativity. And so when you prove it to yourself that you're worth it, that's when that confidence hits, where it's almost like unstoppable.
I love that. And I think about this when I work out, and I don't know if you ever think about this, but there's something so powerful about being physically capable. And I encourage anybody who's listening to this, whether you've been somebody who's worked out, I don't care if you're 60, I don't care if you're 16, move your body and work out, because it will serve you well in your life in more instances than you can count. And I think if my house caught on fire, granted, I have Johnny, who would hopefully help me carry kids out. But if he wasn't there, he's traveling, he's working, he's doing whatever, I will carry my children out of that burning building because I can physically do it. And I think about that when I work out too, that my body has purpose. My soul has purpose, my mind has purpose, and my body has purpose. And when I work out, it's not just to be a professional athlete, but there's been so many times, even when I'm late for a flight and I'm running through the airport and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm physically fit. But there's also been emergency situations where I feel like, for example, I had a little 9-pound Chihuahua, and at the time we were on a walk and he was off leash, and there was a Cane Corso. It was a really big, I think, Mastiff dog who clearly wanted to eat my dog. And I basically got into a wrestling match with this damn dog. Thank God the dog was not aggressive towards people, or I probably just made a real stupid mistake. But I'm telling you right now, I push kicked that dog. I wasn't trying to hurt the dog, but I was like, gotta protect my little Chihuahua, But in these moments, same thing, that physical ability to know that you are capable is really powerful for your mind and emotions as well. I think it all works synergistically.
Yeah, you're 1,000%. I ruptured my Achilles in 2022, trying to play my nephew in basketball, and I did a full rupture, and it was bad. Where, not to get into the story, but ended up getting infected. So I was down for like 2 years, where I couldn't. Like, this is probably the first year where I feel back to somewhat normal. So I couldn't run, I couldn't do anything, and during that time, it made me really appreciate even more, like, man, just to be able to walk, just to be able to move, just to be able to, reach, just peak performance. And, I'm on a journey right now where, I had a conversation with myself just the other day. It was like, man, don't let age, I just turned 40. And I think so many times we let, age, oh, you're 40 or you have 3 kids and, you're this or this. So it's okay not to, put your best towards health. And it's not okay. When you're physically able and you have the gift of having all your function, all your limbs, I think, and this might be kind of extreme, but I think it's disrespectful to the creator, not to be able to put your best self forward. And for me, having kids, like, I want to be functional. Tristan's 16, I still try to keep up with him, but I have 2 daughters. Marley's 5, Maya's 8. When Marley is a teenager, I want to be able to go and run to her. I want to be able to, somewhat be able to help her and show her and be able to move and, have mobility. And so you hit the nail on the head. I think it's very, very important to take care of your health because it's literally the gateway to so much other success in your life.
You were telling me on a call before that. Now you brought up your kids, so I got to tell you. So which one has the middle name? Tell me this story again. The fans got to hear.
Yeah. So me and you did an Instagram interview, I think maybe 2019 or something like that. And my wife, Maria, she was listening. And obviously, we all know you. And she just got pregnant and we were thinking about names. And so all the boys in my family have a T name. And so all the girls in our family have an M name, but I always get the T for the middle name. So we have Maya Trinity, which I named Trinity. And then for Marley, her middle name is Tate. And we literally got that from your name because you're a fighter. And we're like, we want Marley to be tough. And she is the little tough girl. It was like, you know what? Let's name her Tate. So you are the reason that my daughter's middle name is Tate. For sure.
Oh my gosh, I'm so moved by that. And I don't even know what to say. I'm so honored. I really appreciate that. I got to meet this little one. I'd love to meet all your little ones, but
for sure.
Get a play date together. Yeah, for sure. So
we definitely got to do that.
That's awesome. All right, so back to that. Now I'm all flattered and blushing. Beautiful, beautiful. But back to the whole mindset, mind, body, soul, getting these things working together. We talk a lot about you got to do this. You got and I mean it in like, we're trying to be helpful. Like, here's the things, you've got to take those glasses off. You've got to move through life. So if we could put that into actionable items or recommendations, are there a few things that you could say if somebody's like, okay, I hear you, Trent. I want to have my self-worth. I want to improve my self-value. I want to see the things that you say I'm worth. What are some things that they can do as actions to start to turn that view around about themselves and really up their view of their self-worth?
1000%. Just to, because I always believe application creates transformation. And I'm glad you asked that question. And I would start simple. I would ask the person right now, you know, well, the first thing you have to do in order to move forward with your life, I think the mistake that we all make is I say this about moving on. You'll never you'll never move forward to what you're meant to have in life by continuously focusing on what you're moving on from. A lot of us, we make the mistake on our past. We focus on that. It's like, oh, I'm trying to get over this situation, I'm trying to get over this thing. And it's the wrong place to put your energy, because what you focus on is what you feel. So you got to start focusing on, what do you want for your life? What do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? And I know it seems like super inspirational and motivational, but it's true. Like, start right now and write down, what's the life that you want to live? Because most people don't know. And when you don't know, you're shooting blindly at a target that you're never going to hit. So you got to at least create your target, even if that target changed. Like, what do I want to feel every day when I wake up? What do I want to be around? And dream boldly, dream courageously. And so that's the first thing. The second thing I'm going to tell you to do is, this might seem, kind of cold hearted, but it's true. You have to get rid of the things in your life that are keeping you from living the life that you deserve. And I know, and I'm not saying just do it, just kick people out your life, like, just for a small reason. That's emotional immaturity. But when there's things in your life, whether it's people, habits that don't serve you, you have to be able to get those things out your life, because you'll never heal in an environment that's making you sick. And so you can try to climb this mountain of life, which we all got to climb, but it's a lot easier to climb it when you let go of unnecessary weight. So what's the unnecessary weight that you don't need in your life as you're trying to scale this mountain to becoming the greatest you? So make that decision. It's going to be hard. And just as a little incentive or a little push to help you make that decision, I would just ask you, like, what is it costing you? What is it costing you to keep? Maybe it's a friend that's not good for you in your life. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's staying at a job that is terrible for you. What is it costing you? And I would put a price tag that's like extreme, right? It's costing me $1 million. It's costing me, whatever your piece is, right? Peace is priceless. It's costing me my health. I know people who've gotten cancer, I believe, just because they kept the wrong things in their life. So it's costing me my life. And so when you get that extreme, you'll start to make decisions. And then from there, once you get those things out of your life, then you got to ask yourself, okay, what are things that I need to be around, right? How can I find community? I don't believe we're meant to go through this life alone, right? Maybe it's okay, I listen to a podcast. Maybe I need to read books. Maybe I need to join this run group. Maybe I need to join this fitness, whatever it may be. What do I need in my life that's going to help me hold me accountable to the life that I want to live? And I think if you can just start with those three things, then you'll start to move down a path where you start to experience, because that's the thing, Misha, when you start to experience, you start to feel better, you start to experience like, oh, I feel better, man, doing these things. It actually, I see the results, my skin is clear, I'm less stressed, I'm getting better sleep, I look good, what I mean? These things are happening. That's when it's game over, because now you're actually feeling the momentum of the choice that you're making. But I don't want to say too much, but I do want to say this, because I think it's important. There's I call it a streamline of success, and I'm not gonna go too in depth with it, but I always tell people there's like 4 levels of it. You make a choice, and a lot of you are going to make a choice. You're going to say, okay, this is my year. I'm going to change, especially 2025 right around the corner. I'm changing everything. Nothing wrong with that. But when you make a choice, you're going to meet resistance, right? Resistance is necessary in growth and change towards your best life. Whatever it is, it could be fitness, it could be a relationship, it could be moving towards something new. You're going to meet resistance. Most people quit at resistance, and they go back to another choice. And so they live their whole entire life between making a choice, meeting resistance, and going back to another choice. And they live their whole entire life, never accomplishing anything, having unfinished business. After resistance, you have momentum. Momentum comes when you stick with it, right? You actually finish what you start. You actually stick to your promises. You actually honor your commitments. You actually are consistent with your life. And then you start to feel that soul momentum where you start to feel things changing. Then after that, you start to actually experience the lifestyle change. And so most people never get to that lifestyle change, because when they meet resistance, they go back and say, oh, this isn't for my life. This isn't working. So I'm going to try something new. They live their whole entire life with that mindset.
It's so powerful. I think it was on a podcast with Cameron that I did about Kava, but I talked about this a little bit, and I think it's what you're saying. Did you know that if a tree is grown indoors and it never has any wind, eventually at some point it'll just fall over. Like, it doesn't have a backbone, essentially. It doesn't have the strength to even hold its own weight because it never had the resistance to help it develop the strength that it needed to it outgrew its own strength. The strength never grew with the tree. So you need the wind. The wind is very vital for trees to grow big and strong and do the job that they were intended to do.
That's it. Resistance is necessary for everything. When I feel resistance, it lets me know that I'm on the right path. I actually smile at it. I'm like, okay, like even from a business standpoint, when we start a big project, and if there's no resistance, I'm like, we probably aren't dreaming big enough. This is too easy. So when I meet resistance, I say, oh man, like this happened. Let's all get together. Let's figure this out. But it's so great because once we figure it out, we all grow and we get to that next level.
And there's a sense of reward in that, right? I mean, it feels so good to do something that's challenging.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, to overcome those challenges. And I think you said in some of this as well, like as you were describing the things that people can do to take action, is removing the things in your life that aren't moving you towards what you think your purpose is. And I would like to share with you that I was in a 9-year toxic relationship that really did not serve me. And I think that I did so much in my career in spite of. I was going down the path where I had trained myself to think that I needed all of that negativity in order to produce the best Misha Tate. That was just, it was adversity driven. The more adverse my training camps were, the more difficult, the more turmoil and chaos was going on, the better I was going to be. And I came to realize later that it was absolutely not the truth. It's not that I can't be great for having resistance in my life. I certainly can, but there's got to be a balance to it, because when there is so much resistance that you actually feel like you're being pulled under the water by the weight, of the people around you or the main people in your life, that it can make you sick, and eventually it will be like a candle that's burning from both ends, and then you crack it open from the middle and you light the wick from the center too. I mean, you're just burning out too fast. And that was something that I had to learn the hard way. I ended up losing my last two fights in MMA and in the UFC, and I retired, and I contemplated whether my life was still worth living. I thought about, is this the end for me? I don't know who I am outside of the fighter. I don't know who I am. And I thought about it in that moment. And I was very close, I would say, more than considering taking my own life in that moment. And I think I did what you said, Trent, was just, let me just get to the next day. There's a little tiny ray of light over there. It's real small because everything's real dark. Now, I don't know what's over there, and it's real scary because I have no idea where I'm going. It's like being in a dark room. You don't know if you're going to trip over something, bust your head. But the only choice that I had was to move towards that light. And once I started that trajectory change, I started to remove the things in my life that I realized were not serving me. They were pulling me under the water. And it was like peeling back the layers of an onion and trying to find the center of who I am. I didn't have the answer for that. I thought I'm Misha Tate the fighter. That's who I am. I had tied my identity to being an athlete or to a singular outcome. A single night was defining my worth, whether I won or I lost. That was my value. And I had to really take many years to heal from all of that I had conditioned myself to believe, that this is what you are capable of and this is what you need in order to be success. Those were all limiting factors. They did not serve me. They didn't help me. And I'd love your thoughts on that, and then I'll move into my transition from that point.
Yeah. When you look back, as they say, hindsight is 20/20. It's all necessary for us to go through. And I think, even hearing you talk about that, even in your pain, you had some intention. Deep down inside of like discovering who you actually were without it. And I think even when I look at my life and my journey, it was the same thing where even I didn't know it at the time, but I still knew that there was something inside of me that said you were made for more. Even though I didn't even want to believe that because I was like, I'm just made to play football. I don't care about all of that. And so it takes that strip down, it takes that rock bottom to truly find out who you are. And so the question I ask a lot of people, and I would even ask people listening to this right now, is like, who are you without it? Who are you without everything? Who are you at the core of you? If you were the only person in this world, who would you be? I walked through that with my son. He's a high school football player. And like you said, our worth as athletes is tied to our outcomes. It's tied to how many yards did I have? How many, did we win the game? And did I make a mistake or did I not? And I had to talk to him and say, hey man, I know this is hard and I know it's easier said than done, but you have to separate it. You can't allow your play determine who you are as a human, right? How you played is how you played. Evaluate it, get better, but it's not who you are as a human. So I had to learn as a father because I'm a coach too with him, but as a father and a dad, I had to learn and say, hey man, I love you regardless. I don't care if you score 100 touchdowns. I don't care if you score one. I don't care if you fumble the ball and you lose the game and all these things. I still love you. And it's something that I tell him every single game. And I've seen like a weight lifted off of him because, I know deep down with my son that he has this, a little struggle of like trying to be dad. Dad made to NFL and everybody. And I said, you don't have to be me, bro. I don't want you to be me. Honestly, you're going to be better than me. You already are better than me. You're loved regardless. And I think that's very important for everybody to know that you're loved as the human, despite any success, even with social media now, I strip away my identity from, people, oh, you have 16 million followers and all these things. And those are cool, but that doesn't make me, right? I'm still Trent 16 million or not. I'm still Trent viral video or not. I'm still Trent regardless. And so you have to work very hard not to allow the labels the world puts on you to stick to you. And it's hard. It takes practice because, if you start believing it, like I did when I was playing football, that, oh, I'm great because of who I am. I'm great because now people can say, oh, my boy plays in the NFL. So now I feel worthy. But as soon as I lost all those things, now I feel worthless. So it's taught me on how to just really base my identity foundationally and just being who I am as a human. And I feel like, you've been created. I know this seems super like, oh, okay, but there's only one of you in the world. And when you really embrace that, you're the only person that has your fingerprints, you realize that the miracle you're searching for is you. The hero you're searching for in your journey is actually you. And so you got to embrace that. And that's really helped me, find myself in this journey.
I think that's so powerful. It reminds me of just the other day, my daughter was sitting next to me. We were outside, we were playing, we were enjoying the sunset, we were connecting with nature. And she sits next to me and she said, Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And I looked at her, and although it touched my heart, I gave her a kiss on her forehead and I said, honey, you know what I want for you? I want you to be better than me. I said, you're going to be amazing. You're going to change the world. And, she just smiled, and she's just so sweet at 6 years old. And I think what a gift children are for us, a true gift that can help us reflect on ourselves, and they can provide us with the most genuine connection you could ever hope for, at least in this physical world.
Yeah, kids, I mean, my kids changed my life. Tristan changed my life as a man, 16 years ago. And my daughters, they changed my life again. Just realizing how it is to have daughters and raising young ladies versus a son, it's just so much purpose, in being a parent. So much pressure too. It's a lot, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think parenthood is the greatest gift to a soul for sure.
It is. It's a real blessing. And I know that my children have motivated me to be really the best version of myself. I mean, that and my relationship with God, because I think that God put me on this place in this world to be me for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, He has intentions for me that I'm probably not even aware of yet. And I try to keep that close to me because I feel like in my darkest times, God has been there for me. But I also feel like
Yeah.
in my best times, God has been there for me no matter what. He is a big part of who I am and the reason why I'm here. So I think about that. And that's another reason why I started this podcast, because I wanted to be able to help more people. I wanted to be able to help the masses. And in this Built for Growth, I want people to know that they are built for it. Whatever it is that they are trying to get through, like, they have the ability to do that. Whether you believe in God or you don't, I mean, I believe that God instills us with these things. We just have to peel back the layers sometimes. But even if you're not somebody who has a relationship with God yet, or, whatever, your value and your uniqueness in this world are unmatched. They're unparalleled.
1,000%. I want to say this to you too. Thank you. Thank you for embracing, who you are, because I know how hard it is once you have so much success in one area of your life. And I just hope that even your audience or people that are new to you, they really understand your journey and what it takes to be able to transition, to be able to reinvent yourself, and to be able to care about the world on a deeper level. I always say with sports, we have fans, and that's great. But when you get to this place of inspiration and you're being vulnerable and you're using your life to inspire people and impact people, it's a different type of relationship you have with supporters. It's different type of, because you're actually making a difference, not just being somebody's entertainment, but actually impacting people through your life. So I want to salute to you for that, and thank you, for being a light to so many people.
Oh, I appreciate it, Trent, and likewise. I'm glad that we can connect like this and just get a synergistic, positive, truthful message out to the world. Because in this podcast, I'm seeking the truth. I'm doing it for all those reasons of like trying to help people find out what that is, what their truth is, what the power that they have within themselves. And so I guess that brings me to my next point. I want to give your book a shout out. I know that it just came out. It was October 22nd, at least for Audible. I don't know when the written copy came out, but I'm an Audible person. I'm always on the go. I like to play it in the car or whatnot. So definitely a powerful listen. Some of the quotes that you have in that book, man, like they're good. They're real, real good. Do you have a favorite quote on there, by the way? I think I have one. I have one saved right here. I'll read this to you right now. Hold on here. Hold on. Oh, you're a choice away from a new beginning and a commitment away from a new life.
That's
Damn.
actually my favorite. Like, I say that a lot. I say it a lot, and it's true.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so true, because we do have a choice in this. I think people forget. They think that life happens to them. It's like, I mean, things happen, but the way that you can interpret them, that's where the power's at. If you can find your peace, and if you can protect your peace, by the way, the book is called Protecting Your Peace. If you can find that and establish that relationship with self, then I think you are the most powerful person on the planet.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's what with that quote, it's a reminder every single day that, you don't have to wait to a new year. You don't need a new day. Really, all you need is a new moment, a decision to say, you know what, I'm changing everything. This is my new beginning. And the commitment part, yeah, you got to stay committed, because we don't want to just make a choice and, we go back to our old habits, 2-3 weeks later. We want to stay committed to that choice so we actually can see the change. And the audiobook, experience, if I know a lot of people read the book, but the audiobook, I brung a lot of, different elements. It's not just me reading it. Of course I'm the person reading it, but it's just creatively, I'm giving some of my spoken word stuff. I'm actually giving a lot more commentary on things. And so I put my heart and soul to that audiobook. I didn't want it to make it like one of those audiobooks you're like, okay, this is boring. But I want it to be an experience for people. And literally, it's an experience that I really feel like if you're struggling with protecting your peace, and there's 3 areas, right? Protect your energy, protect your mind, protect your soul. So it's a holistic approach on protecting your peace that can help you with performance in business and as an athlete, but also just, making sure you're staying on the right track to live the best life. So I think it's for everybody.
I think so too. And I think today's message is for everybody. I hope that they can get as much out of this as I know that I did. So again, Trent, thank you for spending the time today. Your voice is powerful. Your message is powerful. Everything that you do has such a purpose, at least in my life. And I know that you have affected millions of people across the globe, millions and millions. And I hope that I can leave you with that today is just a token of gratitude and appreciation for you being here, but also for you being you.
Thank you. That means the world to me. Let's just keep being legendary.
Let's go.